Finally, the fourth component in the phases of review of literature, that is writing. Last but not the least, very very important, whatever you have done till now is simply the background. Nobody can see, nobody can analyze what you did, but they can analyze your writing and get an idea of what you did. So writing becomes most important. Whatever you did in your earlier phases, if they were bad, this is definitely going to be bad. But if they were good, there is no guarantee that this would be good. So being diligent, being intelligent, and be committed, that is what is the key to writing. When we say writing, it means critical writing and argument. This is not the argument which we indulge in our houses, in our workplaces. An argument in this context means putting forward reasons to influence the reader, supported by evidence. Nobody would ever believe you unless you convince them with evidence. And this evidence comes from the homework which you have done earlier. How you put that evidence would build an argument. An argument, in the academic meaning of the word, is a form of intellectual engagement with a reader or listener. It should be constructive. The point here is to persuade the reader with your argument. You have to build up a case that they have every reason to believe you, and this can be built with the help of evidence. In writing, it is important that you are critical also. Quite often, literature reviews, especially written by those who are beginners, who are novice, they are marked down. The reason is there is too much description and not enough argument and explanation, reflection or analysis. Sometimes too much of description stands irrelevant if you are not able to put it in right critical manner. So how critical? Critical does not mean you keep negating the work of others. Critical means appreciating the positives which make sense. Not that you are a judge and you are going to say positive and negative. It means analyzing the themes, which aspects they covered. If you are able to convince your reader that this particular author made an impact on the research map because his study was comprehensive. So to this comprehensive reason, you will have to give evidence. Evidence comes, you support your argument with the help of instances. He talked about this. In the other perspective, he also talked about this. He covered this much of time period. He also talked about this, etc., etc. Generally, in this case, signaling words or pointers and linkages, they also help. For example, if you are talking about some similar opinion, we could use words like similarly or equally, likewise, in the same way. Say for example, you have to strengthen, you have to emphasize your argument, what you are going to put next. You could use words like in addition, besides, moreover, furthermore. It is different, not only but also. It is different but important. So these words we regard as signaling words or linking words. I'll give you more examples. Alternative words, like I want to change my track and say that some people have argued against this also. You could say others argue that. But always if you say others argue that, you should always give in within brackets what do you mean by these others, which means quote the past literature. You could also say alternatively, it is also argued that, it could be argued that, and likewise. Sometimes we have to use rebuttal words like however, on the other hand, nonetheless, notwithstanding. To add more, some of the contrasting or contradictory words could be although, by contrast, on one hand but on the other, conversely, etc. I give you more, results and consequences. As a result, consequently, because of this, it resulted in this. And finally, concluding words. Therefore, in conclusion, thus we can say that. So such words, they help in adding to your linkages, they help in making the connect and let the conversation flow, let the flow be smooth in itself. Generally, when we talk about writing, in writing of the literature review also, we have a structure. Ideally, like any other paper or any other piece of writing, we keep it simple, and it could be introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, we should define the topic and we should provide a brief informative background. Generally, it comes from why we are doing this or what was the background with which you flow into this argument. Discuss the kind of attention it has received. Like we say, these days talks of governance, they are very popular. These days people are worried about governance because of the so many number, because the spate of scandals which are making news. As it is, sometimes you could say this is an under-researched area. Mind you, say only if it is an under-researched area, and that you should know whether it is under-researched or not. Or it has been the subject of much debate. Actually, it's like a problem in both the cases. If your area is under-researched, you need to justify. If it is over-researched, you need to all the more justify. Then why are you adding to the already available literature? And here you are simply putting it, the logics and the arguments for it you already have made in your reading and organizing. State the reasons for reviewing the literature. Of course, you cannot say I need to review because my guide told me. You will say why are you reviewing it in the context that there is a debate on this, or there is a lot of change in this area, or we have a lot of contrarian views and so the debate is ongoing, etc. Explain the organization of the review. It is very common if you read a good quality research paper, generally even if it is just a review article, it is very important, and it is very what do I say, as a habit we always mention that what is the structure which follows. So here in the introduction also we say how have we structured our review further. Give an indication of the scope of the review, the criteria which you have used. Actually, it is important here because at the outset in the introduction, if you say my literature is limited to this particular time period or this particular perspective or this particular sequence of events or this theory, it prepares the reader not to expect beyond it, and it will be easy for him to relate to your particular scope. So in these things, if we are able to identify, if we are able to compile, our introduction is done, then flowing to the main part, the main body becomes easy. Similarly, in the main body now comes the main text. As we say body, that means all arguments, everything is now built up here. How you break it into paragraphs, how you break it into different themes or sections without actually defining the sections, it is now up to you. Some of the considerations while constructing the main body of the review could be: proceed from the general, the wider of the research under review from the wider perspective, then you come down to the specific problem. If you take up the specific problem first, it is kind of you are missing on the important information. You just mentioned there are other perspectives, but I am talking about this. Does not mean all other perspectives are not important. You would have justified in the introduction why you have picked up this perspective. Be organized in accordance to the themes that you have identified. Generally, as it happens when we are writing, prolific writers, we tend to lose our connect. Here we cannot dare do that, because there are so many rigorous checks through which your paper or your academic writing would go, you dare not lose that theme. So it is important that you keep yourself restricted to this particular theme which you have chosen in the beginning. And once the theme is chosen, address it systematically by considering what the different writers have said about them, evaluating what is appropriate. I hinted at you some words, similar words, rebuttal words, connecting words. They can come to your rescue at this place. So this main body should summarize, should put together all the arguments in a proper flow. Now, how do you do them? You can do it in the way of chronology, you can do it on the basis of theme, you could do it on the basis of argument, you could do it on different bases, and that would form the main body. and then comes the conclusion of your initial things, the review. And in this conclusion, we summarize the most significant contribution of the literature. Otherwise also, writing or when you are putting together a piece of writing, the subtle rule or the unsaid rule is never lose the loose end. You should also always conclude it in a very proper way so that the person understands that you've concluded. So here, even if it is a summary, give a brief summary of whatever points you have mentioned. And in this, also point out the major flaws or gaps in research. Never forget that your research is not the ultimate research. Even if you are that intelligent that you graduate to a Nobel Prize winner, even then the research would not conclude over there. So you must identify, you must put on paper that these are the further areas of research. These are the things which I could not do or address, and it leaves room for further investigation. And what are the main issues that should be clear from the conclusion of your study. The conclusion should specify that these are the main things you talked about and these are the things which you did not talk about, which leaves scope for future investigation. Here I also put that while you are writing a review, you fall short of words. You find some of the verbs which we commonly use, they do not strike you. So I have put together some reporting verbs which may help you in constructing the body as well as the conclusion of your research. Some of the reporting words which I put are argue, it is argued, assert. These particular group of authors, they have asserted on this theory, on this argument. Assume, challenge, propose, recommend, suggest. These studies suggest that there is further room for this particular area. Find, examine, very commonly used. This was found, this is how we examined it to establish this relationship. It is emphasized, the studies have noted, it is observed, to propose. So these are some of the reporting verbs which can help you when they are put at the right places, they can help you build a good linkage in your work. So these were the 4 phases, to just put it again, in writing or in compiling a review of literature, which we said that you search, it all begins with searching, then you have to read it, which is again a continuous exercise, you organize your material, and then you write it. So when these phases are done, and they are done based on theory, based on comprehensive approach, it will lead us to a good review of literature. And other than the requirements and compulsions, this review of literature does work as a training course, and you see you have graduated as a researcher and you are now able to view, perceive things, the same writings in a more effective point, in a more effective way. So with this review of literature, if you can train yourself in this, if you can practice this, because research continues, more you practice, the more better results you have, I am sure your research journey would be more rewarding. So all the best with your research and a better review of literature so that you are recognized as more emphatic researchers. Thank you.